After designing your logo on Illustrator, it's time to work on the typographic. Picking the right font that blanks with your symbol is important for a good logo. Typographic is a very intimidating subject for new designers. But I'll walk you through the basics, so that you can be confident when working with type. The first thing you need to know is the different types of typefaces. But before we even jump into that, I'm sure you will be wondering what the heck a typeface even is. You use fonts, right? So what is a typeface then? A typeface is a particular set of glyphs that share a common design. For example, Helvetica is a typeface. Now, many designers, even professional designers, have a misconception that fonts and typefaces are the same thing. Well, they're not. Among designers, the word typeface and font are used interchangeably, but they both have different meanings. A font is a particular set of glyphs within a typeface. For example, Helvetica Bold is a font of the Helvetica typeface. There's nothing wrong with calling a typeface or font. But if you want to become a professional designer, it's better to understand and establish the distinction between the two. Okay, so back to typefaces. Typefaces are classified into many different categories. For the sake of this course, I'll focus on only 3 types: serif typefaces, sans serif typefaces, and script typefaces. Serif typefaces. Serif typefaces are classic and original light faces dating back to the Roman times. They are named serif for the little feet, or stroke at the top and bottom of the letter forms. Today, you see them everywhere, mostly on print copy, such as in books, magazines, and newspapers. Some examples of popular typefaces include Baskerville, Playfair, Display, and Times New Roman. Serif typefaces are not very common logo design, but recently they have become very popular. These typefaces are very suitable when you're designing an elegant or classic logo. If you look at some popular logos, you will see that they have a serif typeface. For example, if you take a look at the Rolex logo or this Zora logo. These iconic logos have serif typefaces and look so beautiful. The second type, sans serif typefaces. Typefaces without serifs are called sans serif typefaces. Compared to its serif counterparts, sans serif typefaces are much more decent and convey a sense of simplicity and functionality. Some examples of these typefaces are Helvetica, Futura, and Sophia Pro. Whenever you look at a sans serif typeface, you'll see how the lines are smooth, clean, and simple. This is one of the reasons why serif typefaces are used a lot in logos. Chanel, Google, and Microsoft are examples of brands that have sans serif typefaces in their logos. Recently, many popular brands have redesigned their logo and switched to sans serif typefaces. The most notable examples are Google, Gap, Burberry. So why have these big brands with great logos switch to a simpler sans serif typeface? Well, sans serif typefaces work well on multiple mediums and contexts. Not to mention they look more modern. If you compare the old and new Google logos, which one would you prefer? For me, it's definitely the new one. You know why? Because it's clean, modern, and simple. It works well on our devices that come in all sizes and shapes. The last but not the least is script typefaces. Typefaces that mimic handwriting, called script typefaces. The best example of this is the Pinterest logo. These typefaces feature curves and swashes in the letters, which makes it look handwritten. As you can see from these examples, script typefaces are great for logos. Many big brands like Virgin, Coca-Cola, and Wendy's feature script typefaces in their logos. When working on logo design, you can use a script typefaces if you want to add some personality or life to the logo. Now, let's talk about where you can find good fonts for your logos. There are many resources out there where you can find both premium and free fonts. So here's a list of websites where you can find great fonts. You can find a more detailed list as a PDF in the description of this video. Let's go back to the Squint logo and find a good fonts for it. I'll first look at Google Forms, the best resource to find free fonts for your project. As you can see, I'm on the Google Fonts website, and there are so many great fonts. One great thing about Google Fonts is that you can type your text and preview it live while browsing for fonts. So let me go ahead. Untype Squint before we browse for fonts. You can also change the font size and apply filters to narrow down your search. For this logo, I feel that a sans serif typeface would fit well with our design. So you click on the Categories button and deselect all the other categories. Now Google Forms is only showing us sans serif fonts. I also want to see how the fonts will look in bold style, because that's what I prefer for this logo. Under the font properties, enable a thickness slider and set a preferred thickness. This much looks good. This font looks good. It's bold, looks energetic, and will blend with the symbol we designed earlier in the video. So let me quickly download the font on my laptop, and then we'll play with it on Illustrator. Okay, so I downloaded the font, and we're back in Illustrator. As you can see on my screen, I have multiple fonts added to my artboard. I write the Comforter font we picked from Google Fonts, but I also had many other good fonts installed that I want to experiment with when working with logos. It's always best you try multiple fonts with your logos before you pick one. So I have all these fonts, and now we're going to narrow them down to one font. I like these ones in particular, so I'll move them to a new artboard, or you can delete the ones you want to discard. I prefer keeping them on my artboard so I know the options are tried. So I have selected these 3 forms. Let's position these next to our logo and see how it looks. As you can see, these ones blend really well with our design. Let's try different variations of positioning our symbol. You can move your symbol at the top or left, whatever you prefer. But most of the time, positioning the symbol on the left is the safest way. Also keep in mind the spacing between your symbol and your text. You don't want to space them out too much, that they look separate. And you shouldn't also space them to close, otherwise it wouldn't look clean. You can also play with the spacing while experimenting with type. The end goal should be to create an eye-catching and readable logo.